الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم أنت ربي خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت، أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت، أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. Dear brothers, sisters and children, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah that this is we decide to resume our virtual program. It's only tonight, Wednesday and Friday, and we are so fortunate to have with us today our president, Dr. Ahmed Tantawi. Go ahead, brother.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'm your servant and the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I'll try to keep it a little short today, but I'll try to focus on a few things that I think we need to come to sort of think about a little bit. And the first one is time. Time, just plain old time. I'm sure the pandemic and the whole situation that we've been talking about for months and months now have taught us many things. Perhaps the one that is really critical is time, and the importance of time and the uncertainty of time as well. Of course, we can fear a lot of things, we can fear pain. We don't want to be sick. We don't want to lose people and so on and so forth. But let's think about what happened, what is happening now, and what was happening this time a year ago. What is the difference? Not much really. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was here, is here, will be here forever, for eternity. So that has not changed. What has not changed since last year till now is that we, people who are alive today and listening or speaking, we were alive last year, we're alive today. We lost some people during that year. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on their souls. We lost people. Some people have suffered through, disease and other things. Some people have suffered economically. But if we focus on the one thing that we learn across this whole thing is that really time passes. Time does not stop. Life continues. No matter what happens, there are things that are going on. And there is this concept of time that we should probably shed much more light on now. This whole situation showed us that, as I said, time doesn't stop. Second of all, time is uncertain. Time is really what matters now. It used to matter, of course, but now we see it more. We see that things might change, things might end. Many things can happen over time. So the only thing we need, the only sort of really very valuable resource that we have to manage is our time. We are weak. Yes, we are weak, but we have to use our time smartly, wisely, and not to lose sight of the importance of things and the priorities of things. Let me focus on the use of time as we see it today. People complain, I can't go out, I can't go to a restaurant, I can't have this, I can't go have fun somewhere, what have you. Yes, of course. But your time is still there. You did not lose your time. Your time is there. And you get to use your time wisely. You have to use it. If you don't, it's gone. It's going to go. So you have to use your time wisely. What do you do with your time? You can sit down and keep reading about all the disasters that can happen and what will happen and what has happened and so on and so forth, or focus on the right thing, the things that have more priority, the things that are useful, that are pragmatic. One of those very important things is, what is our purpose in this life? Why are we here? Why do we want to live longer? Why? We just want to live longer because we like it here? Because there are reasons. Everybody has his own or her own reasons. But at the end of the day, we all know that time for every single person will end. And we keep following each other and so on. So we have a limited span of time. What do we use it for is up to us. One very important thing that we should probably focus on more now that we have perhaps more time. We're not traveling too much. We're not going around too much. We're not, eating out or, going shopping or what have you as much as we used to, is that we have more time to do other things. So let's prioritize. One thing is understanding our raison d'etre, so to speak. Why are we here? We are here for many reasons. I'm not going to get into this topic, but one of the very important things that we're here for is, or actually we need to be, aware of, is that we are doing the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to do. And it's not just prayers. I'm not talking about praying and fasting and all these, pillars of Islam. This is not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about being a true believer, being a true Muslim. We should train ourselves to get to that state. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Hujurat, قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the Prophet, peace be upon him, and he says, the Bedouins say, we believe. We believe. We are believers, basically. Tell them, O Prophet, salam, say to them, you do not believe. You should rather say, we have submitted, aslamna, we have submitted to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For belief has not yet entered your hearts. So there is a difference here in levels between submitting to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obeying him and doing the things that he has asked us to do and he instructs us to do, and being a true believer. So there is a difference between the action and the manifestation of things and the obedience and all that. All this is excellent and very good, and we should do it, all these deeds, right? But we should back that up with a true belief, with something that is anchored in us, that is permeating our selves, that is, in us, in our brains, in our minds, in our hearts, that drives us to do things. So Iman is something that is very, very important. So praying, fasting, giving zakat, trying to perform hajj and so on, of course, doing shahada first, all these are very important things, but they're not enough. Add to them giving to charity, helping people, all this, that's also very good, but that's still not enough. You should have the belief deeper in ourselves. We should have the belief drive all these things. And the way I should probably explain this a little in simple, give an example for it. For example, you can be, all of us actually, we rarely, have problems holding a cup of tea and talking, right? We talk, we can get passionate sometimes, but we never really spill the tea, or rarely, some of us do, but we rarely spill the tea. We hold it very tightly. We are not thinking about that cup of tea. We are thinking about what we're talking about the people around us and what we're telling them and what they're saying to us and so on. We get nervous sometimes, but we keep the cup of tea horizontal. Why? Because we have trained ourselves that way. When we were little kids, 2, 3 year olds, we could, forget. I mean, I'm talking to you and the tea, spills. I am not doing this now because I've already trained myself, right? This whole, feedback mechanism that I have has trained me to hold something horizontal and relatively still. So that is something I train myself to. I want to be able to train myself to do the same things with the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to be able to live my life, get into doing things and thinking and acting and so on and so forth, without forgetting that my iman, my religion has to be kept still. It has to be there. So I train myself not to think about it, but live it, Do it without even having to think about it. And this comes with training. You cannot teach a person, while you're talking, you have to do this and your angles and so on. You don't teach them that way. You practice, right? You practice until you reach that level. The same thing for Iman. We need to practice, and we have time now. Luckily, right? We have more time than we used to have. Use it for this. Let's use it to train ourselves. What does training ourselves means? And why should we do that? Because again, Iman is something that is inside the person, that permeates the person, that is like everywhere inside of us. In order for us to do this, we have to start with ourselves, again, training ourselves on doing this. Understanding the fundamentals, this is the first step. And then training ourselves on keeping them. Understanding the fundamentals of Islam is critical, and it is not complicated. You do not have to memorize the whole Quran. Maybe you should if you could, but you don't have to memorize the whole Quran to understand the basic fundamentals of Quran. There are what I call the super rules, the super fundamentals that underlie everything. There are detailed rules on how to do this and why to do this and so on and so forth, but there are super rules that you need to make sure you start with those and train yourself to keep those rules always there, always. You don't need to think about it. Should I do this when something happens? What does Islam tell me? What does my religion tell me? How should I react? How should I act? How should I behave in certain situations? Of course, you can behave in ways that are prescribed in the Quran. But if you understand the super rules, the fundamentals, it will make it easier for you to hold that cup of tea horizontal and still, right? So that training is very important. It starts with, again, I keep saying this, the super rules, you have to understand them. One of them, for example, just to give a quick example, is justice. Right? You have to be just. As simple as that. Just keep training yourself on being just. Do things, and train yourself. You have to think that way. I have to be fair. I have to be just to people and to myself, to my family, and so on. I have to be honest. I have to all these super rules that we have to follow. I have to be truthful. I train myself on these things. This is different from training myself on the details of things, right? So this is one very important point. The second point is that for that training to happen, you try to practice with others, right? You practice with your family, you practice with your kids, your spouse, your parents, whoever, your friends, your colleagues, and so on. Practice with them. Practicing means not necessarily, just doing things, but also discussing them. Here's a situation. What do you think we should do? What do you think I should, be doing or acting or this is a discussion that you could have. And the discussion should be not just, you should be doing this because it's the good thing. Let's dig in deeper now. It's the good thing. Why? Why is it a good thing? Let's dig in deeper and find me a verse in the Quran. Find me a hadith. Find me a saying. Find me something that proves that this is the right way to do it. You try to dig in deeper. The more you do this, the better you practice. It's like really even practicing in sports, right? You don't memorize the rules in sport. You practice, you keep playing and making mistakes and doing and so on. And then your coach tells you, you should have done that. You were in the wrong position. If you were there, it would have been better. You should, and so on. So you have this whole, ecosystem around you in practice in sports that you need to have as well when you practice for becoming a true mu'min, for having Iman reside fully in front of you. That leads me to another very important point that we should probably, use the time we have now to focus on a little more, which is the distinction between the pillars of Islam and Islam itself, right? The pillars of Islam are extremely important. These are the pillars that carry the building. But the pillars are rather useless if they're not carrying any building. So performing all the rituals is not going to, help you become a real believer, a true believer, somebody who truly believes, and somebody who is a true Muslim. It's not enough. It's important, it's critical. Yes, it's the pillars again that carry the building, but you need the building on top of these pillars. What is that building? That building contains many rooms and many floors and many things that you need to build, one room at a time, one wall at a time, one, window at a time, and so on. You have to start building that structure on top of it. That structure is Islam as well. So the pillars and the structure above it, this whole thing is Islam. Islam is not just words, and it's not just reading the Quran quickly because you want to finish reading it in however many nights or days you want to do it. Although that's important, don't get me wrong. This is very important. But it is more important actually to understand what we read. Sometimes we forget, sometimes we read just quickly, right? Because I want to finish this juz, or I want to finish this ayah or what have you, and I read it quickly, sometimes even without thinking deeply about what I'm reading. You may want to do this, it's okay, but it's not the best thing to do it. The best thing is really to try to understand it, especially if you're reading the Quran in its entirety, or even a surah for the first time or the second time or the 10th time. Read it one ayah at a time and try to contemplate, to think, what is the meaning of this ayah? How does it relate to other things, and so on and so forth. This is the focus that you need to have when you read Quran. It's obviously more important to understand than to memorize. So understand it first, and memorizing comes second. You got to try to reach that level, the second though, but don't start with just, I'm just gonna, read this thing and that's about it. I don't understand what it says, and basically that's fine. I just read it. No, you need to understand that. This is very important. I go back to the point again that it's easier to do it with somebody, with a spouse, with a friend, with a brother, and so on and so forth. And we have time now. We have a lot of time that we're spending bored, reading things, looking at things, and so on. It's just use it again. Use your time wisely. We should also know that the Quran includes really a massive repertoire of values, of good things, and of good principles that guide our behavior. So understanding the Quran and having that strong belief in ourselves that would drive us to do things, it would make it easier for us to do things, and it would help us become much better persons because of the things that we learned, and because of the conviction that we have in that we are doing things, we are doing the right things, and we are doing them well. Let's not forget again that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed us many times in the Quran about thinking, about not just looking at things superficially. We have to think, we have to go deep in almost everything. He always says yatafakkarun, those who contemplate, who think deeply, right? There's also, yafqahun, those who understand, who have knowledge, they try to really acquire that knowledge. It's in almost every surah you have these words, one or the other, or sometimes both. So these are very, very important things. So it is really actions. It's your actions, my actions that count. It's the deeds that count. It's not just the acts of worship and rituals and the simple things, the superficial things that are important. And again, I keep saying, I will repeat that these are important, but they're not the most important things. Do them. Of course, you have to pray, you have to fast, and so on. Yeah, this is very important. But what is even more important is understanding why we're doing this, understanding the core of things and believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having that belief that drives us to do things naturally. Like again, holding that cup of tea, it's natural. It becomes natural to us. So let's use our time trying to achieve that level, try to achieve that, state of true belief that makes us live as Muslims, not just perform rituals as Muslims, but live as Muslims. We need to make sure of that, and we need to perhaps use our time a little wiser. And thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakum Allah khairan, Dr. Ahmed. Okay, and this, enlighten us. That means this is to go deeper and deeper, not just anything artificial. So that means that this is what I remember, like making to be excellent, to make it like a habit rather than anything else. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and family. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our community. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lift this waba and this bala and let us go back to our life, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.